Welcome back to the deep dive. We're really glad to have you here today.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
So today we are taking a stack of research that, well, on the surface, it looks like a pretty dry technical manual.
Very dry.
Right, but it's actually a survival guide. It's for anyone who has ever hit send on an email and then immediately felt that terrible pit in their stomach.
Oh, we've all been there.
We really have. So we're talking about the art and science of locking the digital briefcase.
It is a topic that feels like it belongs down in the IT department basement,
Mm-hmm.
you know? But the reality is that it sits right on the desktop of almost every modern professional.
Exactly. And the source we're using to break this down is a really comprehensive guide. It's titled Secure Correspondence, A Lawyer's Guide to Outlook Encryption.
And that comes to us from the team at moremax.net.
Yes, it does. And before you tune out, because you heard the words Outlook Encryption,
Stick with us.
yeah, let me frame the stakes here for you. We aren't just talking about keeping your emails private from, like, a snooping roommate.
No, not at all.
We are talking about the difference between a successful business deal and a full-blown malpractice lawsuit.
Absolutely. The guide focuses heavily on the legal profession, sure, but the principles here, they apply to everyone.
Right.
I mean, consultants, therapists, financial advisors, basically anyone who handles other people's secrets for a living.
To make this really concrete, I want to introduce you to a character that we found in the source material. Her name is Sarah.
Sarah, right.
Now, picture Sarah for a second. She is a senior partner at a very high-powered law firm. She is brilliant at litigation. She can argue a complex case in her sleep.
But she's definitely not a computer programmer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not a coder. She's the kind of person who uses technology as a tool, not a hobby.
Which really describes the vast majority of the workforce, right?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Sarah is an expert in her specific field, not in cryptography.
Exactly. And right now, Sarah is staring at her screen. She is handling this massive high-stakes merger.
We're talking about a deal worth billions.
Billions. And she has a discovery file. It's a PDF containing highly sensitive financial data, and she needs to send it to the opposing counsel immediately.
So pressure is really on.
Oh, completely. The tension here is real because Sarah is caught in a serious bind.
Right, because on one hand, she has the pressure of the deal, the speed of business.
The client wants it done yesterday.
Exactly. But on the other hand, she has these massive ethical anvils just hanging over her head. She is bound by the ABA model rules regarding client confidentiality.
And depending on the data, she might be dealing with GDPR data privacy laws if there's a European component involved.
Or POPIA, or any number of regional data protection laws.
And the phrase the source material just keeps coming back to over and over is reasonable efforts.
Well, right, reasonable efforts.
The law says she has to make reasonable efforts to protect that data, but what does that actually mean in the year 2026?
That is the core question right there. Because 20 years ago, reasonable efforts meant you didn't leave a physical paper file on the seat of a train.
Right, you locked your metal filing cabinet before you went home.
Exactly. Today, the filing cabinet is digital and the train is the internet. The source argues that reasonable now implies a basic competency with the security tools that are readily available to you.
You can't just throw your hands up.
No, you can't just say, oh, I'm not a tech person, and absolve yourself of the responsibility. Ignorance isn't an excuse anymore.
So Sarah is terrified. She needs to send this file, but she knows that sending a standard email is basically like sending a postcard.
It really is. Anyone handling the mail along the way can technically read it.
So how does she lock that digital briefcase without needing an IT degree?
Well, the reassuring thing about this guide is that it really emphasizes accessibility. Sarah doesn't need to go out and buy expensive third-party encryption software.
Thank goodness.
And she doesn't need to learn command line coding or anything like that. The solution, what the source calls the digital vault, is likely already installed right on her computer.
It's built right into Microsoft 365.
Yeah.
So let's visualize this for the listener. Sarah has drafted her email. She's attached the explosive PDF. Her cursor is just hovering there. Where does she actually go?
She needs to look up at the ribbon at the top of the message window. She just clicks on the Options tab.
Okay, options.
And right there, usually fairly prominent, is a button, the little padlock icon labeled Encrypt.
See, that sounds almost deceptively simple. You just click the button.
You click the button. But, and this is where our deep dive really begins, clicking the button is just the first step.
Ah, there's a catch.
That button actually opens a menu. And understanding the nuance between the choices in that menu, that is what separates a standard user from a power user who is actually protected.
Okay, let's unpack these choices then, because I think this is where a lot of people get confused and just give up.
For sure.
The source highlights two primary modes that Sarah can choose from. The first one is called Encrypt-Only.
Encrypt-Only, this is your absolute bread and butter.
Now, to the average person, Encrypt-Only sounds like it does it all. It says encrypt, it's encrypted. We're safe, right?
Yeah.
What exactly is happening when she picks this?
So think of Encrypt-Only as an armored truck. When Sarah hits send, the email is scrambled. It is put into this digital armored truck and driven across the internet.
Okay, following the truck.
If a hacker intercepts the data stream at, say, a public coffee shop, or if someone is sniffing the traffic between the two law firms' servers, all they see is complete gibberish. The transit itself is totally secure.
Okay, so the armored truck gets to the opposing counsel's destination safely. Then what happens?
Well, once it arrives at the opposing counsel's inbox, the back of the truck basically opens up. The recipient can read the message, they can download the attachments, and crucially, they can forward the email.
Wait, they can forward it?
Yes.
After all that armor?
Yes. And this is actually a feature, not a bug.
How so?
Because in many professional scenarios, you want the recipient to be able to share the information internally.
Oh, I see.
If Sarah sends a contract draft to the opposing counsel, she knows that lawyer needs to forward it to their junior associates, or maybe send it to their client for a review.
That makes total sense. Because if you lock it down so tight that they literally can't do their job, they're just going to call you up and ask for an unsecured copy anyway.
Precisely. It defeats the purpose. Encrypt only secures the pipeline, but it maintains the actual workflow. It is the gold standard for collaborative professional correspondence.
Okay, but let's raise the stakes for Sarah. Let's say this isn't a working draft of a contract. Let's say this is for your eyes only material.
The really sensitive stuff.
Right. She is terrified that the opposing counsel might accidentally forward it to the wrong person, or maybe she's worried about an intentional leak to the press.
Then she needs to use the second option, and this is the one that really impressed me in the source material. It is called do not forward.
Do not forward. It sounds like a command.
It is a command, but it's enforced by hard code, not just professional politeness. When Sarah selects do not forward, she is applying what's called information rights management, or IRM.
IRM. Okay. So walk us through the recipient's experience here. I get this email from Sarah. I open it up. The forward button is what?
It is literally grayed out. You cannot click it.
That's great.
But it goes much further than just the forward button. The print function is completely disabled. You cannot print the email to a PDF. You can't print it to a physical printer.
Really?
You cannot even highlight the text in the body of the email and copy it to your clipboard.
So if I try to copy a paragraph to paste it into my own notes app...
Nothing happens. The system blocks it. It effectively creates this secure sandbox around that specific email. The information is trapped inside the window.
That is incredibly powerful, but I have to ask the question that I think everyone listening is probably thinking right now.
Go for it.
What about the attachment?
Oh, yes.
Because usually the email body itself is just, please see attached. The real secrets, the actual financial data, are in the Word doc or the Excel file that's attached.
Right.
If I download Sarah's attached file to my local desktop, surely I can do whatever I want with it then.
You would think so, wouldn't you? This is the real aha moment of the whole guide. The answer is no.
No.
This is what the source calls the attachment lock.
How is that even physically possible? Once the file is on my hard drive, it's mine. It's outside of Outlook.
Not with this specific technology. If the attachment is a Microsoft Office file, so we're talking Word, Excel, PowerPoint, the encryption and the rights management rules travel with the file itself.
Oh, wow.
The lock is literally embedded into the metadata of the document.
Okay, so let's play this scenario out because I need to understand this. The opposing counsel downloads the Excel file. They save it to a physical USB flash drive.
Okay.
They hand that drive to a sketchy journalist in a dark parking garage.
A very dramatic scenario, but I like it. Let's run with it.
Right, so the journalist takes the drive, goes home, plugs it into their computer, and double-clicks the Excel file.
So Microsoft Excel opens up. But before it shows even a single cell of data, it phones home.
It phones home.
Yes. It silently pings the Microsoft Rights Management server over the internet and says, hey, I'm user X. Do I currently have permission to view this specific file?
And the server checks the guest list.
Exactly. The server sees that journalist user X is not on the original recipient list that Sarah defined when she hit send.
And
it completely denies access. The file simply will not open. It just displays a generic message saying you don't have permission to view this content.
That is wild. It's like a digital leash on the file.
It effectively extends Sarah's control over that document long after it has left her actual possession.
Yeah.
It prevents that accidental or intentional leak where a client forwards a highly confidential strategy document to their brother-in-law for some free advice.
That is an absolute game changer for someone like Sarah. So she's picked her mode. Let's say she went with do not forward just to be incredibly safe with this merger data.
Smart move.
She hits send. She sees the little banner at the top of her draft that says, "This message is encrypted." She feels secure. She can finally breathe.
She has definitely done her ethical duty.
But now we have to flip the script a little bit. We have to talk about the person on the other end of that email.
The recipient.
Right. Because I know I have received secure messages from banks or my doctor before, and honestly, sometimes it is a complete nightmare.
Oh, the portals.
Yes, you have to click a link, go to a portal, create a brand new account, try to remember a password you made 3 years ago, get locked out. It is pure friction.
And that exact fear is the anxiety Sarah feels. She sits there thinking, if I secure this file, will my client be annoyed with me? Will the opposing counsel think I'm just being difficult and slowing down the deal?
Nobody wants to be the person who sends the email that requires a 20-minute tech support call just to open a single PDF.
Completely understandable. But the really good news here is that the technology has evolved significantly in recent years. The engine behind all of this, it's called Microsoft Purview, it works very, very hard to smooth out that friction.
So let's look at scenario A. The person Sarah's emailing is also a corporate lawyer. They're sitting at a big firm, and they also use Microsoft Outlook.
In that specific case, the security experience is almost entirely invisible. It's completely seamless.
Really?
Yeah. The recipient clicks on the email in their inbox, and it just opens.
No passwords, no secure web portals.
None. Because both organizations are already authenticated on the Microsoft platform, the system verifies their identity in the background. It knows John at Big Law Firm is the intended recipient, and it decrypts the message instantly.
That is incredible.
The only visual difference John even sees is a little padlock icon near the subject line and maybe a small banner saying "Do not forward." Otherwise, it acts like a normal email.
Okay, that is the absolute dream scenario. But the real world is messy.
Always.
Sarah's client might be a startup founder who runs their whole business on Gmail, or maybe an individual person using a legacy Yahoo address. What happens to them in scenario B?
This is where the portal experience does come into play, but I promise you, it is much better than it used to be. When a Gmail or Yahoo user gets one of Sarah's encrypted emails, they don't see the text immediately.
What do they see?
They get a wrapper email.
A wrapper.
Yeah, it's essentially a notification email. It just says, Sarah has sent you a protected message. And there's a big ominous button right in the middle that says, read the message.
Okay, and when they click that button?
They are taken securely to a web page. Now, here is the really clever part. They usually do not have to create a brand new Microsoft account from scratch. They were given two simple options.
Okay.
The first option is to simply sign in with their existing Google or Yahoo credentials.
Wait, so it uses a federation protocol, like when I log into a random website using that login with Google button.
Exactly that. Microsoft inherently trusts Google's verification that this user is really who they say they are. It's a quick, familiar handshake that people are used to doing.
That's brilliant. But what if they don't want to do that? Or what if they're using some obscure internet service provider email that doesn't support that federation?
Then there is the one-time passcode option.
How does that work?
They just click a button that says, send me code. Microsoft instantly emails numerical code back to their inbox. They copy it, paste it into the web page, and the secure message opens up.
So it's basically exactly like two-factor authentication when you log into your bank.
Yes. It adds a step, sure, it is a tiny bit of friction. But when you compare that to the old days of creating a whole new portal account just to read one file, it is a massive, massive improvement in usability.
So the real takeaway for Sarah here is don't let the fear of annoying the client stop you from securing the data.
Right.
The friction is minimal, but the protection you get is massive.
Security doesn't have to mean suffering. That is the core lesson of that section.
Okay, so we've thoroughly covered the digital vault, which honestly seems like it covers 99% of normal business situations.
It does.
But the source material does mention an escalation, a next level up, the ironclad option.
Ah, yes. Some
MIME. It even sounds serious. When does Sarah actually need to pull this out of her toolkit?
This is reserved for the extreme cases. We are talking about classified government secrets, intellectual property that is literally worth billions of dollars, or highly regulated environments that require strict proof of origin.
Proof of origin. Okay, how is this different from the digital vault we just spent all that time discussing?
The digital vault relies on server-side encryption. It's handled by Microsoft in the cloud, which makes it flexible and easy. CA is client-side encryption, and it requires a lot more manual setup.
Meaning?
Meaning Sarah cannot just decide to use SMIME on a random Tuesday morning. Her IT team has to physically install a digital ID, which is a unique personal certificate, directly onto her specific computer.
Okay, so it's definitely a hassle to set up. What does she actually get in exchange for dealing with that hassle?
She gets two very important things. First, incredibly robust military-grade encryption. But secondly, and this is the key differentiator here, she gets a digital signature.
Now, when you say signature, you definitely don't mean the text at the bottom of her email with her company logo and phone number, right?
No, definitely not that. Think of it more like a heavy wax seal on an envelope back in the 18th century.
Okay.
But this one is mathematically unbreakable. When Sarah sends an SMIME email, that digital signature proves to a court of law, mathematically proves that the email definitely came from her exact account.
Wow.
And crucially, it proves that not a single byte of that message has been altered or intercepted since the exact moment she hit send.
So it completely prevents tampering.
Completely. It prevents a legal concept we call repudiation.
Repudiation.
Right. Sarah cannot later claim, oh, I never sent that email. And the recipient cannot claim, you never sent that to me. It provides an absolute, definitive digital paper trail.
That sounds incredible. Honestly, why don't we just use that for everything? Why even mess around with the other digital halt stuff if this is truly the ironclad option?
Because there is a catch, and it is a pretty big one.
There's always a catch.
Always. For SMIME to actually work, it requires prior preparation. Sarah and the recipient must have exchanged digital handshakes beforehand.
Digital handshakes, what does that mean in practice?
Basically, I have to send you a SMIME signed email first, and then you have to send one back to me. This allows our respective email programs to save each other's public encryption keys.
Oh, I see.
If we haven't done that prior coordination, I literally cannot send you a SMIME encrypted email. The button just won't work.
So I can't just cold email a brand new client with SMIME turned on.
No, you can't. It requires infrastructure and prior contact. That is exactly why the digital vault is much better for day-to-day agile business, while SMIME is reserved for those long-term, established high-security relationships.
Got it. Okay, so Sarah has these amazing tools at her disposal now. She has the vault, she has the ironclad option, she is ready to be the James Bond of corporate law.
She's armed and ready.
And here's where harsh reality sets in. The best tools in the world will absolutely fail if the human holding them makes a simple mistake.
Without a doubt. The human element is always the weakest link in any cybersecurity chain. You can have $1 million lock on the front door, but if you leave the physical key hiding under the welcome map, the lock doesn't matter at all.
Exactly. And the source actually lists some golden rules for Sarah. These are best practices to avoid essentially shooting herself in the foot after doing all this work.
Right.
And the first one they mention is practically a comedy trope at this point, but it happens constantly in the real world.
You're talking about the two-line error.
We have all done it.
Oh, absolutely.
You start typing John, aiming for your current client, John Smith, and Outlook's helpful little autocomplete fills in John Stevens, the journalist you emailed once, like 3 years ago.
And you're in a rush, so you just hit tab and then send.
Yep. And if you hit send, it does not matter how incredibly encrypted that email is. If you encrypted it perfectly for John Stevens, then John Stevens can open it perfectly.
You have just securely, professionally, and flawlessly delivered your company's deepest secrets to the exact wrong person.
Congratulations, John Stevens. You are now the only person on Earth who can read this highly confidential merger file.
Exactly. People forget that encryption only protects the tunnel itself. It does not verify that you chose the correct tunnel to begin with.
So the rule there is incredibly simple, but vital. Slow down, double-check the two-line every single time.
Always. But there is another vulnerability the source mentions, and honestly, this one shocked me when I first read it.
Yes. This is a real deep dive detail that I think most people simply do not know.
You are talking about the subject line vulnerability.
Yes. We need to shout this from the rooftops.
This is absolutely critical for everyone listening. When you encrypt an email using the standard Outlook tools we just talked about, the body of the email is scrambled.
Right.
The attachments are scrambled and locked down.
Yep.
But the subject line itself is often not scrambled at all.
Wait, really? Why on earth would they leave the subject line wide open like that?
It's actually a technical necessity for the internet to function properly. Email servers, which are basically the post offices of the internet, they need to scan subject lines to know how to properly route the messages, how to thread replies into conversations, and how to display them in your inbox list.
So that metadata is just out there.
That metadata often remains completely visible in plain text as it travels.
Okay, so let's go back to our lawyer, Sarah. If she writes an email, she encrypts it perfectly with do not forward. She checks the to-line perfectly.
Doing everything right so far.
Right, but the subject line says, settlement offer for Smith versus Jones case, $5 million.
Then she has completely failed.
Wow.
Even if the hacker or the interceptor cannot read the specific offer details inside the email body, the subject line alone has just revealed the existence of the settlement, the exact parties involved, and the potential financial value of the deal.
She has leaked the information just by writing a helpful subject line. That is genuinely terrifying. It's exactly like your analogy earlier. It's like putting a massive bank vault door on your house, but then writing your social security number in Sharpie on the mailbox.
That is a perfect analogy.
Huh.
The rule here is strict. Never, ever put sensitive client names, internal case numbers, or dollar amounts in the subject line of an email, even an encrypted one.
So what should she write instead?
You have to use completely generic subjects, things like correspondence regarding your case or update on matter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
It feels very impersonal.
It does feel impersonal, and it feels counterintuitive because we are all trained in business to write highly descriptive subject lines so people actually open our emails.
Right, to get their attention.
But in this specific context of secure data, descriptive is dangerous.
It seems so obvious once you say it out loud, but I guarantee people do this every single day.
All the time.
Now, there's one last tool the source mentions that actually helps Sarah avoid these manual human errors. Because let's face it, Sarah is incredibly busy. She is stressed.
Very stressed.
She might just forget to click the options tab one day. She might forget to check the do not forward box when she's rushing to catch a flight.
And this brings us to a feature called sensitivity labels. This is the automation aspect of the whole system.
How exactly does that work?
So, if Sarah's law firm is really on the ball, the IT department can pre-configure these labels that appear right there in her Outlook ribbon, right next to the font choices.
Okay.
They're just simple buttons with names like general, confidential, or highly confidential.
So she just picks a label instead of digging through menus.
Right. Instead of having to remember all the technical steps, she just tags the draft as highly confidential. Behind the scenes, that one label acts like a powerful macro.
Oh, I see.
It automatically applies the highest level of encryption. It automatically turns on the do not forward restriction. It might even automatically stamp a confidential watermark directly onto the attached PDF.
So it completely saves her from having to remember all the individual steps.
It takes the cognitive load entirely off the user. Sarah doesn't have to be a security expert at all. She just has to know how to categorize her own document. It perfectly aligns the complex security protocol with her natural workflow.
I love that. Use the robots to save us from ourselves.
Precisely. Automation is the best defense against human error.
So let's bring this all home. We started this whole deep dive with Sarah, totally stressed out about her multi-billion-dollar merger. What is the ultimate synthesis of all this research for her?
The synthesis is that Sarah can absolutely meet her strict ethical obligations without having to change her entire career path.
Right.
She satisfies that legal standard of reasonable efforts, not by becoming a master hacker, but simply by understanding the core difference between encrypt-only and do not forward. It's all about intentionality.
She uses the options tab, she double-checks the tow line,
Okay.
she keeps her subject lines boring and generic. And by doing those few small, intentional things, she ensures that her client's data stays safely behind a digital vault. She maintains trust. And in the professional world, especially the legal world, trust is the only real currency.
It really is. And as we wrap this up, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought to mull over.
Okay.
We talked so much about the subject line vulnerability today, which was fascinating. And it makes me wonder, how many other unlocked doors are we just leaving wide open in our digital lives?
It raises a very important point. We spend so much time focusing on buying the strongest lock, the encryption software itself, but we completely ignore our actual behavior around the lock.
Exactly. Even if you have the best lock on the door, are you accidentally writing the combination on the welcome mat? Are you sending a
perfectly secure, do not forward email, but then immediately calling the person and discussing those exact same secrets on a non-secure cell phone line while sitting in a crowded airport coffee shop.
Security has to be a mindset. It's not just a button you click. You really have to look at the whole picture of how you handle information.
A mindset, indeed. So, to all of you listening right now, whether you are a high-powered lawyer like Sarah or you're just someone trying to keep your family budget or medical records private, go check your email settings today.
Definitely do it.
Open a new draft right now. Just see if you have that encrypt button sitting there. You might be really surprised at the power you already have right at your fingertips.
Because knowledge is only valuable when it's actually applied. Go apply it.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you next time.